Hello, Happy Crumpers. Quick bit about today's video. I'm about to bring on Josh Cowlard. He is the first person to win a GT with Orks in Pariah Nexus. We're extremely blessed to have his, opinions and his walkthrough how his tournament went. You're going to learn a ton from this interview. It is a little bit long, but while we're talking about the individual rounds, man, we go into some detail and there are some gems in here. So definitely buckle in and enjoy the heck out of this interview with the #1 Ork player who's just running amok. So here you go, guys. Hello, my grots and gits. I actually have the biggest war boss around right now. We've got Mr. Joshua Collard. He is the official first Ork war boss to win a GT with the Orks in Pariah Nexus. Josh, how the heck are you feeling?
Very good, thank you. It's nice to find it's the first 2-day thing I've ever won, so it's really good. I've won RTTs, but it's really nice to get that bug off or monkey off the back to finally convert a 2-day thing.
Now, if you guys don't know about Josh, he's one of those players who has historically just done really well. That's always kind of slid under the radar because he hasn't gotten the big win yet. So he was #1 in the UKTC last year for Orks. He's on Team Mind Goblins. He is a prolific player. He's all over TTS. He is a very proud, I'm assuming, Happy Crumper. But we love him. He's a very standing a member of our Discord community. So if you guys want to get in touch with him, you can get in touch with him there very, very easily. And he's always super, super helpful with helping newer people get used to the game, or even more advanced people kind of fine-tune you the list. So he might talk a little shit to you while he does it, but he's going to be a great resource for you guys. So he won the Winchester GT. This was a 36-person GT. I think they had a few dropouts, which had lowered the amount of people a little bit. But we're going to go through his list. We're going to go through all of his pairings, and we're going to figure out exactly how the heck he did this, and we're going to learn all the details of his list and why kill rigs actually do suck, and everyone who says they don't suck are wrong. So let's go ahead, Mr. Josh. Why don't you just kind of give me an update of where you think Orks are right now, and then we'll go through your list, okay?
So in general, I think Orks, every time I write a list, I feel like I have one more unit than I should. I think points-wise, Orks are in a great place. You can put so much in a list. Frequently, when I bring my army out on the table or on TTS, people are like, "Oh, that's a lot of stuff I have to kill now." And while it does all die quite quickly, you can very regularly put too many things out for people to kill at once. There obviously the Waaagh change would be really nice if we could Waaagh in the command phase. I think that would be the cherry on the cake. And I think I literally wouldn't change a single. Obviously, buggies and all of the things that are unplayably bad, you could change, but I think they need a whole overhaul. If you just did the Waaagh change, the feel for Orks would be so good at that point.
So basically what you're saying is you're thinking that Orks are in a solid place right now. They have some matchups that are still just too screwed up, and the best change that we could give them is the Waaagh change. And any other issue is really just a data sheet problem that just needs to be fixed, right?
100%. You're not fixing tank busters or buggies or anything by points.
Right.
They need a whole overhaul. But I wouldn't change a single other point, especially on units that are already good. Right. I wouldn't drop or increase any points. I would just change the Waaagh thing and then see where Orks are at. If Orks were still at 45% after that, well then something must just be very wrong with the codex at that point.
It's the Sampa, bro. It's all the Sampa, you know. If only the Sampa was affordable, then we'd be unstoppable. All right, man, so let's do this. I'm going to pull up your list on the screen. I want you to walk us through your list. I want you to walk us through the theory of the list, what the general game plan is, and don't be afraid to get a little spicy with it. So, I believe this is Joshua Collard, 1995 points, Warhorde, Big Shock, and run us through it, man.
Yeah, so I tried 2 games without Gaz after the patch, but every single list I write starts with Gaz. I have a good dice because I am just a lucky guy, and Gaz always delivers for me, no doubt. I've never had a game where I've left unhappy that I've had Gaz in the list. Even at 300 points with the Mega Nobs, I would never cut him ever. So he's just in there. He goes and he kills one thing, and every single charge, 9 times out of 10, you're not even caring where Gaz ends up. You just charge Gaz to position Makari, and you go about your day. and Gaz happens to accidentally kill something on the way. And I play quite passively with Gaz until it's the go turn. He will just hide. He will never go out and charge anything usually. Never go on the objective, just chills in a ruin until it's his time. Then 2 beast bosses, which I'll never leave the house without now. The package of beast bosses and beast snaggers being 180 is just ridiculous. I think
So
maybe
good.
they maybe are probably maybe undercosted, maybe in a world where the book rules changed. They delivered every single game for me as well. The beast bosses, it's just psychological more than anything. You tell your opponent what they can do, and now your opponent has to be like, oh, I do want my Land Raider here, but that truck is 19 inches away, and this Land Raider could very easily not be here next turn if that guy connects. And it just gives you, if you have them in 2, which I'd have, you cover such a wide area of the board where your opponent has to think very hard about whether his, in theory, very tanky units. Between Gaz and the beast bosses, you cover such a vast area of the map in do not go here or you will die. And yeah, they're just great. And then they're also just ridiculously good at killing infantry as well. As long as the infantry aren't like 2 up, even if they are 2 up, say if you're putting 40 attacks with lethals and sustained in the Waaagh, then yeah, they just die. And also, I'm a war boss lover. I'm a knob lover. I love knobs and I love war bosses.
I bet you love knobs.
Especially with the change, they've just gone back to exactly what they were before. Ridiculously efficient bullets, 65 points.
It's bonkers.
What I commonly do is just the war boss will tag one thing, the knobs will tag something else, and the war boss just kills something on his own. Like if it's a rhino, you can quite safely just put the war boss into the rhino, and the 5 knobs tag scouts or something like that, and you just split your attacks, or 2 war dogs. This is like a 5-man knobs unit with a war boss will kill 2 war dogs, and it's just, yeah, they're just so good for 107. Again, it just builds on the beast boss only being 180 points with the snaggers. These are only 170 points with the knobs. Everything is just so cheap and so efficient.
Yep.
So then you go down. I run 20 snaggers for the 2 beast bosses. I always like 10 boys. I consistently seem to just get value out of sticky. I really like putting like on a midfield objective turn 2, if they haven't got a huge amount, especially if it's a melee army, I love putting 10 Gretchen and 10 boys on an objective together, and then they have to, because they 9 times out of 10 aren't taking that objective off you easily.
That's 40 bodies they got. Like you don't have armor, but it's still 40 bodies, like with OC2.
Yeah.
Or I mean 30.
If you're playing World Eaters, 10 boys, 10 Gretchen, the exalted 8-band, like 3 exalted 8-band aren't getting through that to take the objective off you. If you're playing against Blood Angels, you might actually survive against the 5 JPIs, which are ridiculously efficient in killing 10 boys or 10 Gretchen. At least if there's 2, you have the chance to make it so that 5 JPIs don't just come and take your objective off you. And sticky in the midfield for any melee army is just amazing, because shooting armies now have to come and get you off the objective rather than just shoot you off the objective.
Yeah,
80 points, they're ridiculously cheap. Flash kits, which I found out, this will expose a little bit of my thought process when I play the game. I am very thoughtful at the table, but away from the table, not so much. I thought flash kits were 85 points for the longest time. Turns out they're 80, even though they've been in every one of my lists for ages. So yeah, free 5-man flash. Basically, it's just 3 trucks, 3 5-man knobs, 3 5-man flash kits. They just pair up really well. The flash kits, either if you're doing a Waaagh turn 2, the flash kits get out. They clear screens, they throw grenades because they don't have to advance, whereas the knobs are all advancing and you can't throw grenades in advance anymore. So they're just there to be my grenade people. And they just clear up, or they open a transport. If you put all 3 of them into a rhino with lethal hits, they'll open that rhino for you, which then means you can maybe get to that smash captain from the Blood Angels. Right. You can get to that, like that character that's just going to gets around fight first sometimes, all of those little things. And then they just tag. There's still 5 T5 bodies with 2 wounds each and a 4-up save. They can tag lots of things in the game. Or if you're not wiring turn 2, which I've started to try to consider at least occasionally not wiring turn 2, The 15 flash kits are go out and do the hard work on turn 2. They go out, they clear the scouts of the world, they clear whatever's holding objectives, they go out and just be that first wave. And sometimes they randomly die because of -1 to wound or go to ground.
So this is something I talk about a lot with Orks, is one of the really, really important things is to be able to play when it's not your Waaagh turn. And that's one of the things I really like about the way you made the list. I'm not necessarily the biggest flat kits enjoyer myself, but I love the way that you have them in here, is that they allow you to interact on the table when it's not the Waaagh turn. Because if you're trying to Waaagh turn 3, dude, sometimes you still gotta kill something in Waaagh in turn 2. And I love that.
Yeah,
Do you ever find yourself using these guys, say, like in the strat reserve? Because I know you said that you really like deploying gits and knobs inside the 3 trucks, so each truck will have 5 gits, 5 knobs, and the war boss. Do you ever find yourself putting them in like strat reserve later on, or is that
no?
Okay.
No, not really. I am. If the opponent doesn't have indirects, I'm almost always start 10 flash kits, 10 Gretchen, and 2 of the trucks.
Okay.
If the opponent has indirect, 20 Gretchen, 10 Gretchen go in strat reserve, and then everybody. But the 5 flash kits, 5 knobs there, I find them a bit easier to hide than the beast boss and the beast snaggers, because they're 10 models that all have to go in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it's the 5 flash kits and 5 knobs, they can be split across 2 ruins and then get into the truck.
Sure. Okay.
So I like them on the board, because also I find them so efficient at doing their job.
So
when they go with the knobs.
So you'll taxi it, right? So, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll have the snaggers inside the truck, hop them out, have them advance into a ruin or something, and then will hop your knobs and your gets into the truck.
Well, that's no. The Gretchen will be in the truck because they usually just advance into a ruin or onto an objective, set up for a heroic.
Okay.
Set up for either going onto an objective if it's not a shooting army. Against World Users, I love just putting all Blood Angels or somebody that hasn't taken much shooting. You just put 10 Gretchen on an objective and watch them try to solve that problem without committing a resource they don't want to.
That's so annoying.
Yeah, it's just because then something that is real is going to have to come out.
Yeah.
And then the only time I don't do it is if they have indirect, then all the important stuff just starts in the trucks.
Gotcha. Okay.
And 1 Gretchen squad starts off the board for strat reserve, and usually I use the other 2 to screen my deployment zone. So.
Okay.
Then we've got 2 Mega Knobs to go with Gaz. Simple as the +1 to wound. I have thought occasionally about cutting them and just running Gaz on his own, but the +1 to hit and +1 to wound is just too clutch in so many situations that 70 points is worth it every time.
It also helps against like indirect armies too, right? Because they can just like pop Makari early, can't they?
Yeah, obliterators are about,
right?
Which is very scary for Gaz if he didn't have Mega Knobs.
Right.
Exorcists, obviously. Exorcists are the big bad.
Yeah, right.
Then there's just 5 Stormboys and 5 trucks. So the Stormboys, I've been starting them on the board a lot more than I have in Deep Strike recently, because I've been drawing like area denial and stuff like that, and it just feels easier to have them on the board. And 9 times out of 10, they don't do anything in Deep Strike. And what I have found is when my opponent realizes they don't have to screen their deployment zone, all it really means is, like, say you're playing against Tau, that's now 3 more stealth suits that are moving forward.
Right.
Or you're playing against Marines, maybe that infiltrator squad is now in the middle. Oh no, there's 5 more Marine bodies in the middle. Woe is me. They die to 1 knob. Like, a lot of the armies that are screening their deployment zone are screening them with a lot of the Marine people were considering taking that character from Imperial Agents that screens 12-inch Navigator or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And them having an extra Navigator isn't going to change the game in any way.
Okay.
But me having 5 Stormboys on the board turn 1 can actually make a big difference, because they can go for a charge. If you're playing Search and Destroy, the amount of random charges and tags they can get on rhinos and stuff.
Yeah.
If you're playing, even if you're 24 inches away, you randomly roll that 6. You're now, like, especially with a lot of people playing like 6 or 7 tanks, you can really traffic jam people in with those 5 random Stormboys.
You just ruin people's games turn 1, right?
Yeah, that value on its own, 65 points to remove a movement phase, I'll pay that every time.
Right.
And you're not losing anything. If it doesn't go, you roll the 1. Oh, sweet, they're now just in a random ruin.
Okay.
And So I like them on the board a lot more. The only time is obviously indirect. If they've got indirect, I just put them in there. I put them in reserve.
Gotcha. Okay, so this
And
is
then
the
5
list. Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, just 5 trucks.
Yep.
They are actually quite important and generally. They just,
Yeah.
it's so nice. On the Warton especially, is you just hit a lot of things and then the trucks tag everything you can't hit. And sometimes it's so hard for army, like especially if it's infantry-based shooting that doesn't have fallback and shoot. Your 5 trucks can just ruin their whole game because you tag 2 units with them. Or like when I was playing against the Nurgle demons, which we'll get into obviously. There's just 2 trucks went into a great unclean one, and now he's not activating for the next turn. They are getting good use out of the trucks. Really does seem to make a big difference.
And they're also your action monkeys, right? So it's like if you need containment turn 1, your truck just does it for you because you don't care if they kill your truck afterwards, right? So that's how you're scoring all your secondaries. What it looks like to me is that the only secondaries that you're not really planning on is something like behind me lines, engage, and locus. Those are the only 3 that you just don't care about. And is that fair to say?
Yeah, I redrew behind enemy lines every time I drew it because I was quite aggressively trying to score in some of the games. I think there was 1 or 2 games where I drew turn 1. Obviously, you redraw it for free. Every other time, it's either like, oh, if I've got a single free CP, I'll just redraw it every time quite happily because I score the other ones so easily. So
fair play. So you just basically it baked into your list. You say, all right, these 3 secondaries, screw them.
Yeah, and it's very rare that I don't get it. It's very rare that I don't get at least a 2 on engage.
Right, fair play.
As long as I don't draw it turn 1 on like Dawn of War deployment, which we do play here because we are in the UK.
You barbarians.
Barbarians. So yeah, in the course of a normal game, if I draw at turn 3, it's very rare that I'm not in 4 quarters.
Yeah. Okay.
Just by accident.
Sure. All right, cool. So let's shift here. So we're gonna shift into the actual matchups you played. We're gonna talk about some of the struggles and some of the ways that you had approached the games, and then at the end we're gonna revisit like this list and things that you missed, things that worked amazing, things that you may change. If you don't want to change anything, no problem. But we'll talk about some things that like are worth at least considering. And I just want to hear your thoughts on all that. So let's go into round 1, guys. Round 1, let's see. Your name is Josh. You got 99 points against Short Smith's Space Marines. You guys running the Space Marines. The Amethyst Deceivers, Gladius Task Force. They were running an Apothecary Biologus. They had Fire Discipline, Captain Terminator Armor, a Chaplain, a Judiciar with the Honor of Vehement, 1 Assault Intercessor Squad. Then he had 2 JPI, 1 Blade Guard Vets. I assume the Judiciar was with them. The Eradicators. The Eradicators were likely with the Fire Discipline boy. Infiltrators, Scout Squad, a 5-man Terminator, and then a Redeemer and a Repulsor. My goodness, there's just like not that many units in that.
No.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
On to you.
So basically, what you just said was what happened in the game. Like there wasn't a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
And essentially, what I was talking about when I was describing the list, my 170 points of 5-man knobs will kill 4 or 5 of your Blade Guard. My 180-point Beast Boss squad can even kill the Eradicators, to be honest.
Yeah.
But will randomly just kill a Land Raider Redeemer, and that was his problem. He was everything we traded, he traded down.
Yeah.
His Redeemer came forward and had to shoot off 5 flash kits off of an objective. It died. Right. There was quite an experience disparity in this game.
Okay.
So it turned into quite a learning game for the Space Marine guy. There was one point where he charged his Terminators from Deep Strike into a truck, charged his Blade Guard who'd been heroiced into by Gaz, and he started with the Terminators without thinking. Happens sometimes. And I just showed him, I was like, we'll go back and you can start with the Blade Guard, that's completely fine, because you'd never start with the Terminators.
Right.
But here's what would have happened to your Blade Guard. And Gaz killed all 5 Blade Guard. And he wouldn't have got to hit into the boys that he needed to kill for overwhelming force.
Right.
That was quite a sad moment when 6 Blade Guard, the only choice they had was going into 10 boys.
Right.
Because the boys were going to sticky the objective and it was going to be a whole thing for him at that point. And then I showed him, 5 Blade Guard would get killed, and then we went back and the Blade Guard killed the boys. And then the 5 Blade Guard died. And I was just using it to try and teach him. I was showing him ways you can get round fight first and stuff like that.
So I actually love
Also,
this. This is like one of the things that I absolutely adore about experienced players like yourself. And this is something that we try to teach really, really hard at Happy Company Wargaming. We're trying to uplift the entire community around us. So you weren't in danger of throwing your game, but it was much
no.
more valuable to actually educate this player and allow him to pull his move off to actually increase his value instead of just making him have like, oh, I feels bad and I got screwed. Right? So
Yeah,
that was
'cause
awesome. Like, well done.
I find with Orcs, a lot of the time when I walk to the table, this is also obviously a local tournament, so I know most of the people. I didn't recognize this guy. It was his first tournament. But one key question I'll ask before before the game is, have you played versus Orcs before? And 99% of the time, if they say no, the game is going one way because people underestimate Orcs
Right.
because they've heard like the win rate or they've heard from their friends, oh, you just move away when they war.
It's not that
But
simple.
executing that is difficult while not losing the game because primary and secondaries and all that still have to be scored. And even though you tell people, my whole army gets advanced and charge, every time I pull that, like you call the Waaagh and you charge 1,700 points of your army in one go, people go, oh, okay, your whole army has advances in charge. And I've had it happen so many times over the years of going to tournaments. And it's and also when people like measuring the threat ranges or not measuring your threat ranges, you know already very early on that the game is probably going in one direction.
Yeah.
And I got that vibe from him. And as we were playing, he just saw like he wasn't accounting for things that people with more experience would account for. So those kind of games, I always feel fairly confident of winning.
Cool.
So you can then add those little extra teaching moments in. The game wasn't hugely interesting to talk about. I warred, I killed the Blade Guard, the Terminators, the Redeemer, and the Eradicators. Not the Eradicators, sorry, and the Assault Intercessors, the 10-man Assault Intercessors, and a Jump Pack Squad and a Scout Squad. And at that point, you can't come back.
Right, fair play. Let's move on to round two.
Yeah.
You are Josh still, and you played into Daniel Lipscomb. So this was Orks 94 to Leagues of Votann at a 50. Let's pull up the Leagues of Votann list. Now, this is interesting because I always find Leagues of Votann have a pretty good game into Orks. So let's pull up his list. He has one Brookier Ironmaster with the Grim Demeanor, which is the thing that allows you to ignore all modifiers. He's got one Einhair Champion, two Einhair Champions, one with a Praising Glare, which is the thing that gives him like a bonus Judgment token. A 10-man of Hearthkin Warriors, one Sagittar, which means he probably split the Hearthkin Warriors. He's got one 6-man of Brokir Thunderkin, 5 Berserks, 5 more Berserks, 5 Hearthguard, 10 Hearthguard, 2 Land Fortresses, 2 Pioneers, and Jaegers for the Infiltration. This actually looks like, honestly, a pretty good list. I mean, I think the Thunderkin is always an interesting choice. They're either really good or they're awful. But besides that, the list looks strong. It looks very correct. Pioneers, Jaegers, you got everything else that you need in this army. So walk us through this one. Like, where'd we get this differential from?
So we were playing on a unique terrain set, not a WTC or UKTC. We're playing on a terrain set that the guy who runs the tournaments, he's made himself. He's made all the terrain. And there was a combination of 2 ruins that are useless when they're separated, but they're pushed together for this tournament, for this map. And we were playing Tipping Point Terraform. So a very nice mission for me into him, because if he doesn't come out to stop my terraforms, or he doesn't come out to get terraforms off himself, and the terrain was very favored to me because there was a very big ruin where I could fit 3 trucks and gas behind. That he would have to come very far. He would have to come suicidally far forward to get to those trucks.
Okay.
Because his land fortresses would have had to come so far forward that the Waaagh charges would have been 2 inches. So he couldn't access my best stuff. Like, he could have definitely kept safer. The differential was exacerbated. But also, when I look at a Votann list, the less Sagittars, the better.
Yeah.
And for me personally, the more land fortresses, the better, because you can just kill them with Orks.
Right, because the Beast Boss just pops off, right?
Yeah. Armor Contempt is obviously an issue, but now that, back when I used to play Orks into Votann a lot before, it was when Gaz wasn't in the list. and now Gaz has had his glow up with the sweep and the
Sure.
crit on 5s for free. The matchup becomes a lot easier because the Terminators are a lot easier to kill because just it pushes your knobs over the edge with the lethals. The Beast Snaggers, he has to armor contempt against one of them on the land fortresses, or the lethals build up along with the mortals.
Yep.
And Gaz himself can just one-shot a land fortress.
He's such a pimp.
Or if there's 10 Terminators, he wounds on 2. He goes through the -1 to wounds, so still wounds on 3s with all his attacks from the sweep.
Right.
And they're only 2 wounds each. So basically what happened was I got first turn, which is always helpful as Orks. I was able to push up. I was able to threaten 3 terraforms. He had to come out and stop them. I killed everything he came out to stop them with. Didn't call the Waaagh. Was able to kill everything he came out to stop the terraforms with and start more terraforms.
Yeah.
So he had to come out and kill those things again. And then at that point, he was actually having to use real because his Sagittar was dead. His 1 bike squad that had come out to kill a unit was dead because that was what the flash kits did. They were really good for me. They killed both bike squads. When the bike squads came out to stop the terraforms, we killed both bike squads without having to commit real units. And then 1 berserk unit. They also killed 1 berserk unit as well. So this is across 2 turns.
Gotcha.
And then on turn 3, on his next turn to stop the terraforms, he had to use his Terminators and his Thunderkin. And at that point, I'm like, okay, now we pull the trigger. Because we can kill real units.
Yeah, totally.
At that point, we hit on turn 3, we hit a land fortress. We hit the 10 Terminators. And we hit the Thunderkin did kill a whole Nob squad in Overwatch.
Yep.
But luckily, there was 2 more straight after them.
Right.
Like, we had the 3 trucks near each other, jumped out, he overwatched, wiped them, and then, just immediately advanced 2 more Nob squads in that direction. That's why I really like the 5-mans, because if someone's going to die to Overwatch, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a Redeemer, there's going to be a GSE unit, there's going to be somebody overwatching you.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just send 2 units to do 1 unit's job, and it solves the problem.
Fair play.
And then we got to kill a few too many real units. We spiked up a little on the in-buns when his clapback came. And doesn't matter if you're in the war or not when you're trying to kill a land fortress with beast bosses.
Right.
They do not care at all about being in the war or not being in the war. And also killing Berserk, because then he was left with, was it Berserkers? Yeah. He was left with Berserkers, and they don't we don't struggle to kill them out. We don't struggle to kill them outside the war either.
Yeah.
It's just the Terminators, and we got to kill them in the war, so that didn't matter.
So it seems like you play kind of an interesting game where you don't necessarily need an all-in Waaagh turn, because what you do is you force them to lose a unit for one of your units early game, which you're always going to win that because you've got way more units of them. And then you put them in a position where it's like you don't need to do an all-in Waaagh turn, but you might as well. It's as opposed to what I hear a lot of other Orc players do, which is I have to have this Waaagh turn hit.
Yeah, and I do like my Waaagh. Like, I like being in a position where you can just send the game over the edge.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you hit like that 1 10-inch charge, it's like the luxury 10-inch charge. You're like, oh, okay, now the game's over.
Right.
Because I've hit the extra charge I could go for because I've got enough reliable stuff. Cool. Oh, I've hit all my charges without a reroll. Now I can reroll that 10-inch charge or something maybe to try and send it over the edge. Yeah. And I hate having to Waaagh, and this is obviously the problem with having to go turn 2 Waaghs, or I'm going second Waaghs, is you usually get less value out of it.
Yep.
And don't control the value as much. But luckily, I just went first in every game. So
let's move on to the next matchup. And so any big takeaways from this Necron match? You're playing against Nikita Siniakov, and this is an Awakened Dynasty, which is cool. I'm excited to see Awakened Dynasty. So we've got the Chronomancer, Hexmark, Illuminator Ceres, Overlord Plasmancer, and a Technomancer. 3 big units of Immortals. Interesting. So lots of anti-infantry in this list. It does bring a Reanimator, Scarab Swarm, which I find Scarab Swarms are great. Thralls, triple DDA and double flayed ones, and 1 5-man Lich Guard shield. Okay, so this is a little bit of an interesting army that's really tailored to just wrecking heavy infantry armies. Any big takeaways from this one?
So this game, Gretchen, the trucks, and the flash kits were all MVPs. The Immortals shot twice across the whole game, I think, because they were always tagged.
Oh, beautiful.
There was never a turn where all 3 immortal squads got to activate. There was never like because I pushed because what mission was this? This one was, I believe, this was Scorched Earth. So I basically he had the uppy downy on 1 immortal squad because of the veil. And I stuck my home with 10 boys, and then I pushed everything else forward because I wanted to secure the burns early because it was also hidden supplies. So it's quite easy to get a burn off on hidden supplies. So 30 Gretchen went forward in trucks because there was quite good ruins for knobs just to stage on foot. So I didn't actually have knobs or beast snaggers in 3 of my trucks, and all 30 Gretchen were in the trucks. And they, on my Waaagh turn, this one was a turn 2 Waaagh because the to get, so they had to come a bit too close. So my aim of the game was just kill the Doomsday Arks, tag the Immortals, burn objectives, and win.
Sick.
Because at that point, like Seras is good, but he can't carry a whole game on his own.
Right.
And if your Immortals are your shooty unit and they're never shooting, well, that goes without saying how that's going to go.
So
right?
that was brilliant right there. So let's let harp on that for just for a second, because a lot of times I find Orc players in particular, well, everyone does this, but Orc players in particular tend to be like, dude, how do I deal with this horrible shooting unit? Well, it's really not a horrible shooting unit if they can't shoot now, is it?
Exactly, yeah.
That's a great way to deal with it. Like, that's awesome. I love it.
Because while turn 2, I killed 2 Doomsdays, 1 lived, I think. The map on this one was also similarly to the round 2 was very favored to me. There was very good ruins to stage in everywhere.
Okay.
I was able to I went first again and was able to push up. I was also able to just, like, the Stormboys burn an objective turn 2, and he just couldn't because there was too much in his face. Because that was when I used the Waaagh turn. And you can use the Waaagh turn to secure yourself early burns, early cleanses, all this early containment stuff. Because recover assets, and sabotages, because they just can't kill the thing that's recovering or sabotaging because they've got 1,700 points of Orks in their face.
Sure.
So the Waaagh turn was basically just all 30 Gretchen charged all 30 Immortals. He was 1 inch off the wall with all 30 of them. This was a good teaching moment for him that Gretchen cannot be 1 inch from the wall. I'd explained it to him at the start of the game with Makari, because sometimes people get caught out. If they put a unit 1 inch from the wall, you charge them with Makari, and Gaz piles into something else. You just use them as a springboard. And then so he was off 1 inch off the wall with all, and that was quite a hard moment for my opponent, I think.
Felt that in the soul.
Not ideal. And then I just chewed through the Immortals slowly but surely. Armor Contempt was very annoying. Seras giving them all Armor Contempt, and the Crypto Thralls coming back, and Awakened Dynasty being able to revive when you hit them.
Yeah.
I just couldn't kill it. It was a pain in the backside, but they just never shot, so it didn't matter. I couldn't lose once they were all tagged because they were always getting retagged and retagged and retagged. And it took me a long time. Turn 5, there was still Immortals left, even though I'd been hitting them all game. My Orks were just frustrated as hell that everything was coming. Seras wasn't dead because I couldn't even take his first life because he kept living on 1 wound. It was one of those games that if you lost, the dice would have been very frustrating, but you won, so it's okay.
But this is just perfect example, right? So a lot of people, I gave an example in a previous video where people were like, well, how do you kill X? Or, and actually Shettel in the Discord, he actually gave a great example of this. He goes, so how do Admech kill sisters? We don't, dude. We just tag them with all of our nonsense and then they can't move anywhere. And then we win. Like, you don't have to deal with something by killing it. You can deal with it by lots of other ways. So this was great. So let's move on to the next one though, because we're getting into the spicy rounds now. We're in round 4, so this is real games, and you are now playing against Stephen Carmichael Wilson, Chaos Demons. Now, Chaos Demons inherently I find to be a really good matchup for Orcs, but this seemed like a little bit of an odd Chaos Demons list that looks pretty tough to chew through, to be honest with you. So break this one down for me. We have 3 Greater Unclean Ones. One has the Fort Phonopane. Then we've got Rodicus. So this is Nurgle spam. Those Greater Unclean Ones are not easy to kill. Remember, guys, when they pass a battle shock, which they'll be at +1 for, they heal D3 on top of everything else. And you're also Orcs who do not have great OC or great leadership. But every time they fail one, and they'll be at -1 most of the time, they're going to be taking D3 mortals. So it's not like this is easy for the Orks, but we've got 2 units of Nurglings to proc the -1 to hit everywhere. Nurglings are the bane of Orks. We've got 2 units of Plague Bearers that are going to be giving him sticky objectives, 2 Beast of Nurgle, Plague Drones, which will really increase the effectiveness of those greater and clean ones because it gives them the reroll wound rolls, and 2 Soul Grinders. Now that's a little bit interesting. They do actually have a relatively efficient shooting into Orks, but outside of that, not so much. So break this one down for me.
So this was supply drop, which is always a mission that can go a bit crazy.
And you went first.
I went first.
Okay, so pretty big disadvantage there, but also an advantage because you're
Yeah,
Orks.
so I wanted to go first. I generally just want to go first.
Yeah.
I don't care what mission, even in Purge the Foe, all of these missions, I'd rather just go first. I will like control of my Waaagh. We'll worry about everything else later.
Yep.
So I was a little worried, but so before or the end of day 1, after game 3, the pairings came up before we'd left, and this guy came and told me none of my great unclean ones have died this tournament, and I'm easy to bait, I won't lie, and I was like, I'm going to kill all 4 of them. Whatever I do, all 4 of them are dying. Fortunately, I saw sense, went into the Discord, asked for some advice, and everybody told me to not try and kill all 3 great unclean ones in one turn. Good advice, because I wouldn't have killed them all.
That's the Happy Crumpet Wargaming Discord. You should join as a
Yeah.
member. Like and subscribe. Love you all. Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, so thank you to everybody in there that made me sort of sense, because basically what happened in this game was there wasn't great staging points, but fortunately he doesn't have great shooting. Even the Soul Grinders are, because they were Nurgle, he carried on with the theme. They didn't have the Zinch guns, which the Zinch guns are the quite heavy anti-tank ones.
Yep.
So my trucks could take a bit of risks. They could be a bit more out in the open, because it's only, I think it's 3 shots at 10-1 free. And you can take your chances with that, with trucks, for sure. So I was able to stage quite aggressively, and this was a really good game for the Flash Kits again, because he came out to do all his secondaries. He got Area Dinar. I think it was Area Dinar. The Nurglings came to the middle, was able to kill the Nurglings with the Flash Kits without getting anything out of the truck.
Nice, that's big.
The Flash Kits killed them from inside the truck, which is really nice.
Sick.
I think there was a Beast of Nurgle on an objective, and another Flash Kit squad went over, threw a grenade, because they weren't in the Feel No Pain, or threw a grenade, shot and charged, and killed the Beast of Nurgle. So and that was turn 2. So on turn 2, we had the middle stickied, because the boys pushed up on it. We had the left-hand objective. We did lose because he hit an 11-inch charge with his Plague Drones, but can't be too sad about that. Which got him secure No Man's Land and Overwhelming Force, I think, but not salty at all.
No, of course not.
So that denied me some primary, which I was quite confident I was going to get, because he could only shoot indirect at the Gretchen. The Gretchen you take some saves on the Runt Herd, normally they'll survive, but they didn't. I was able to just, on my turn 2, because I didn't want to call the Waaagh, because I think there was 1 great unclean one on the map, if that, and the Soul Grinders were really far back, so I just didn't call the Waaagh turn 2. Cleared up all of the chaff that he'd sent out, which was Nurglings, a Beast of Nurgle, some Plague Drones, and some Plague Bearers. The Plague Bearers I didn't quite kill, so he's sticking the objective, but unfortunately that one was on the one that was disappearing turn 4. And that's also why I put 10 Gretchen there, because I wanted him to commit some army up there where the objective was disappearing turn 4. So you send 10 Gretchen over there, an army like his has to commit something over there, and that's now one thing that's not fighting on the side where you really care. Or he's having to spend 1 CP to pick up a squad of Plague Drones, and you're like, oh, sweet, that's a CP that's essentially wasted in my mind.
Sure.
Then on turn 3, he'd been forced to bring out some great unclean ones on turn 2, but this was his take. He dropped a great unclean one at the back of the board to try and kill a unit that was recovering assets.
Sure.
Which is normally because he could then maybe pressure my home. But that, in my turn 3, when I advanced, this was where his critical mistake was. He interrupted, which meant he didn't have CP to pick his great unclean one up.
Sure.
Then that great unclean one didn't leave the corner of the board for the rest of the game. Because 20 Gretchen charged it and 2 trucks charged it. And a great unclean one is not getting out of that.
Once again, if you can't if you can't kill something, just don't let it move. It's fine.
Yeah, not because he was quite literally in the corner, so he couldn't even physically fall back.
Yeah.
because the Gretchen spread too far back, and if you can't move 6 inches, you can't move 6 inches.
Right.
So in my war turn, I was able to pick up both Soul Grinders, one Great Unclean one, which was Gaz one-shotting it, which is always satisfying. I just love it. The plague, and then this was what basically the advice the Discord gave me. There was Rotigus was also there, and I could have gone for Rotigus. You best believe I wanted to go for Rotigus,
We know.
but instead we picked up the Plague Bearers, the other Plague Drones, and the other all the Nurglings.
Yeah.
So the Great Unclean one with the 4-up Feel No Pain was tagged by 2 trucks, so he couldn't activate in the next turn. The one Great Unclean one was dead. The 2 Soul Grinders were dead, and Rotigus was on the side of just far enough away that I was happy that he wasn't going to be an impactful part of the game.
Yeah.
And just from there, he couldn't get back on the objectives ever. Because the objectives that we were fighting on were the ones that were going to stay for the rest of the game, and my whole army, there just wasn't physical space for him to get onto the objectives.
So the theme is, if you can't kill it, sequester it to a place where you don't need to kill it.
Yeah, and then on turn 5, I meant to take a picture, but I forgot to just to make sure I got the 15 going into on turn 4. To make sure I got the 15 on turn 5, I had Gaz, Makari, 2 Mega Knobs, a truck, 5 Stormboys, 10 boys, and 10 knobs, all on the objective. Physically, just
Leonidas.
no space possible. And I was like, okay, you have Rotigus to get me off this objective with, and Rotigus is great, but Rotigus is not kill everything on an objective great. And unfortunately, at that point, Gaz had ground down the 4-up Feel No Pain Great Unclean one. Similarly to the other Great Unclean one, the 4-up guy was tagged forever. And then Gaz eventually went and killed him for me because Gaz is an absolute G.
Yep.
And then, I just sat every single on my turn. My turn 4 took about 5 minutes.
Yep.
I moved every single thing on Tiv, tagged his Great Unclean one to back up again, and passed the clock.
All right.
My whole clock was spent in turn 3. I think I spent 40 minutes on turn 3 and about 10 minutes on turns.
So that's a big win. So let's take this thing home. Let's talk about the last one. This is the last round. In round 5, come on, update. There we go. And you're playing against Nicholas Willingale. Wow, that sounds like a proper British name right there.
So
Nicholas Willingale. That's a good one. All right.
Nicholas he's the captain of my team.
Oh, sick. All right, so you know him quite well.
I know Nicholas well. The only other time we played, he tabled me in about 30 minutes with 9th edition GSC.
Okay.
I was really happy to play him again because I knew I'd got a lot better since then. And also it's cool to play a teammate. We dodged each other up until here. We were really happy about that.
Yep.
Because without sounding cocky, we really wanted to go into the tournament. We were all both confident we could get to the last round. So it was cool that we got to dodge each other and play the final.
That's sick. So it was an actual finals, right? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I've also played against... I've had the advantage going into here because I've played GSC a lot. And Nick has just picked up GSC very recently, again, since his 9th edition escapades. And they're obviously very, very different now. Mm-hmm. I've played into very good GSC players as well. Tom Lohman from the UK, who's like one of the 6++ guys, and Danny Porter, who's obviously Mr. GSC. I've played multiple
Also a happy crumper, just a shout out.
Yeah, also a happy crumper. And last time we played, Danny gave me some advice that played a big part in this game. So basically, I went first again, common theme. I went first in 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 of the games, which was always helpful.
Yep.
This was Taken Hold, Dawn of War, but my opponent didn't have any of the mining lasers, Ridge Runners.
Yep.
He had, so all my trucks got to start on the line. The only risk being, obviously, that 5 Gene Stealers and the Patriarch or something comes up and kills one, but that's fine because we can trade at that point and hopefully it doesn't come back, and that's a problem that's easy to solve. But I went first, and what I was able to do, I was able to just move up and stage all my trucks. And then his turn 1, he killed a few things or something, not much.
Yep.
And I was quite fortunate because I only had to kill 2 units on turn 2 when they still come back on a 4+. I killed a squad of Gene Stealers and most of a squad of Aberrants, and the Gene Stealers didn't come back. Because my plan going into this was if I went stage aggressively turn 2, and Waaagh turn 3, and kill absolutely everything I can kill on turn 3. Like, yeah, I'll charge 3 units with 1 unit if I can, because you will kill them still. And you just say your opponent, how many 5-ups can you roll?
Right.
I've skipped the 4-up phase. And my opponent, I think I killed 8 things on turn 3, and my opponent rolled 1 5-up. And he was very when we got to the sixth unit, he'd rolled one revive, and he was very insistent on how unlucky he was. But I was like, you realize you've rolled 1 under average.
I love it when people say stuff like that. They're like, "Oh, this is the worst dice ever." It's like, it's 1 under average, bud.
Yeah, and I did get. Obviously, there is a world where all those units come back, or 4 of them come back, and I just lose. But I think against GSC, I just can't. I just put that out of my mind.
Yeah.
Because if it comes back, I haven't got any control over that. I've done what I control it by killing them on turn 3 instead of 4, 2. But basically, what Danny had told me when we played, I screened with my units to screen his deep strikes, and hid my trucks with stuff inside. But what he basically told me, and it's played out exactly the same way he told me, I put all of my important units in ruins, screened my deployment zone with Gretchen, screened the middle of the board with all my important units, and then advanced all 5 trucks up, now empty. So there was basically 3 layers of deep strike screens. So he was having to deep strike in his deployment zone, basically.
Brutal.
Because the whole map was screened with trucks. And if he kills the trucks, that's fine. They're empty. Who cares?
Right.
Because all my good units are now... there was a few exposed from killing the Gene Stealers, but nothing important. Just 5 flash kits again.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they did in this game again. He pushed up a squad of aberrants. The 10 of the flash kits got out, threw a grenade, went lethals, and killed 4 out of 5 of them. And now that unit's not too much of a risk for me.
Right.
Because the scariest thing for me in this matchup is aberrants getting into Gaz. Because he doesn't have the mining lasers, and he's not playing many of the... He had about 5 squads of acolytes, but they have to put a lot of damage into Gaz to kill him.
Yeah, those handfuls are really good, even with the extra AP from the heavy mortars. But
exactly. It's still 3 squads of flamers that are now not shooting my boys, and then they die next turn.
Yeah, sure. Got it.
So I just protected Gaz at all costs from the aberrants. And on my turn 3, after he deep struck a bunch of stuff, ingressed some things, pushed up, I pushed forward and killed a bunch of units and just took complete board control at that point. And the Kelemorphs were being annoying, the Reductor Saboteur was being annoying, the Abominants all got back up, and they're annoying, but a lot of those little annoying things are so much easier to deal with when the rest of the GSC is gone.
Sure. Sure.
Because the Kelemorph shooting you is very annoying, but if you're moving towards the Kelemorphs and there's not also an Overwatch on top of that, it's a lot less potent.
Right.
And my cards went quite well for me. His cards went quite well. He took a secret mission because he was... Well, I think we were even. He thought he could reduce my primary more. So he took a secret mission knowing he'd get a 0 because he'd already got 20 points. So getting that 0 on turn 5 isn't a problem for him because he only needs to pull the secret mission off for the max primary.
Yep.
But I think he just couldn't deny as much as he thought he could. He thought he'd creep a small win with the secret mission after he denied me a bunch of... But a few things didn't go his way on the turn 3 when he was trying to deny my turn 4 primary. And then I drew good cards and was able to just take it home.
And you crumped.
I killed... When you do go into GSC, I think I killed... the highlight was Gaz killed 5 aberrants in the Abominant on his own. And then 1 War Boss piled into a Patriot squad on his own, went crit 5s, 5 5s to hit, and he killed the whole Gene Stealer and Patriarch unit on his own, and then the Gene Stealers didn't come back, and it was
all right. So
it was super satisfying.
So let's start wrapping this bad boy up. So you are King Orc. You wear the crown. Heavy is the crown. You're the number 1 Orc right now because you're the only Orc who has won a GT. Well freaking done, lad. Appreciate you. Now, let's go back to your list for just a second. Remember, just to remind everyone up, we've got Gaz, double Beast Boss, triple War Boss, 2 Stagas, 1 Boys, triple 5-man Gits, triple Grots, 2 Mega Knobs, triple Knobs, 1 Stormboys, 5 Trucks. Now, Josh, there are some things that kind of stick out here. 1, there's no Follow Me Lads. 2, there's no Snickrot. 3, there's only 1 Stormboy and 5 Trucks. Is there anything that you're missing? Is there any reason why you don't have following me, lads? Is there any reason why you didn't include some of the other things? Like, is there any reason there's no kill rigs? There is. They suck. But is there any reason there's? Is there anything that you missed that you want to add, or is there anything that you want to get rid of because it didn't perform?
So on UKTC, which is 2 weeks, I really, really want Snickrot on the list.
Okay.
What I'm going to cut for him, I don't know, but he's going in the list because UKTC has some very open objectives. You need a lone up. There's a new layout for Crucible, which less said about my opinion of the better, that needs a lone up. Okay. There's no two ways about it because there's a line the whole way across the middle of the map. From corner to corner, which sees an objective on the way.
I hate UKTC terrain.
So Snickrot needs to be in the list. What's going to get cut for him, I don't know.
Okay.
The reality is probably the Stormboys get cut for him, and we just hope, like, if we ever need to do something that Stormboys would have done, we get a teleport off. Or a truck. We go down to 4 trucks. We risk pairing the Exorcists, and we just do the taxi thing.
Yeah.
Which isn't too bad on UKTC because we do have some very good big staging ruins. They're just not in nice places on the map, in my opinion.
Right.
And there will be heavy maps because it's a teams tournament. Okay. So there will be a heavy map each round, which in my team comp I will be getting if at all possible. I'll be getting it 5 rounds hopefully because it looks very nice for Orks. There's lots of very nice, but we do also have a World Eaters player, so we might be arguing over that. And I don't want more Stormboys. I didn't miss them.
Okay.
One completely did the job for me. I never felt like I didn't have enough stuff to do actions.
Cool.
I just similarly want that loan up for the actions as well. The recover assets turn 1 and stuff like that. And the only other thing is, it's just Snickrot and follow me, lads. I'd love.
Right.
But it's just a luxury I can't afford, unfortunately.
Because that extra unit of Groth is more valuable than follow me, lads, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's definitely my opinion. Okay. The only once I start dropping stuff for Snickrot, there might be 25 points extra led over.
Right.
The granular points costs, and then follow me, lads will be the first thing I put in if there's another 25 points. But no, the problem is I'm so greedy. I don't want to cut anything. I like the list. I like the list so much, and I don't want to cut anything, so I don't really know. I don't know what's going to be cut, but something for Snickrot.
All right, Josh, this was awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with everyone. If you guys have questions for Josh, you should hop in the members section of the Happy Corrupt and Wargaming Discord, and you should pick his freaking brain. You can also talk crap to him there if you'd like. It's one of our favorite pastimes. So, Josh, thanks so much for coming on. I'm freaking proud of you. Great win. I'm really excited to see more wins. Once you get the first one, it starts to spiral, right? So let's keep this thing running, baby.
That's the hope.
All right, homie. Have a great freaking rest of your day. And for the rest of you guys hanging out there, crump on. Kill rigs still suck. At me in the comments. I'll fight you. I love you. Okay, bye.
No. Okay.